So, how do we treat homeless folks today? We put them in one of three silos or barrels, whatever you'd like to call it. The guy either has a mental health issue, or he has a substance issue, or he has both. Okay, that's it, end of story. Let's go take care of the homeless population. And if you go to homeless conferences and look at the topics that are being presented, they all fall in one of these cans. Let's complicate the matter and let's make it a little bit more real. So we have the substance stuff, we have the mental health stuff. On top of that, we have some of the trauma that we talked about. You grow up in a chaotic environment and maybe you were abused as a child or sexually molested. On top of that, we have the cognitive impairments from whatever brain injuries were taking place. And when you put it all together, it gets kind of like a little weird. But it's not until we're looking at it a little weird and backing up and saying, we don't know what the heck we're doing, and admitting we don't know what the heck we're doing, then we can start to make some progress. Does that make sense? Oh, here's a cognitive profile of a gentleman, let's see, he's 56 years old. The top line shows his IQ. Under that is his verbal IQ. And then we have the third line is his ability to sort of plan, organize, sequence, the stuff we do every day. What am I going to do today? What's the most important? Long-term retrieval has to do with how quickly can he learn new information. And fluid reasoning is sort of like common sense, okay? The bars that you see kind of go from 1 to 100. It's actually, if you came up here and looked really close, it's 100 little people, because we're going to look at some what are called percentile rankings. So when this gentleman, who by the way did not appear to be cognitively impaired, when he was tested using just sort of a basic, it was actually kind of a learning disability IQ test, we found that he had major verbal ability. His verbal ability was incredible. The rest of his cognitive function was horrid. He's a chronic alcoholic with multiple head injuries. So his, let's see. So his verbal ability was way up in graduate school level, but his ability to learn new information, he was like a first grader. So he was having lots and lots of problems in his life. Here's another cognitive profile. This guy was pretty low functioning all the way along, but you would not really be able to tell this until you sat down with a sophisticated instrument, and then, or if you asked him very specific questions like what do you do all day long? How do you take the bus? How do you go about taking your medications? That would start to get to some of this information if you didn't have some kind of testing ability. So let's see, his ability to plan, organize, and sequence is, again, way down there like a first grader. One more profile. This is another guy that looks really good with the exception of his ability to learn new information. And why is it important to learn new information? So I'm in a strange state, strange city, I don't know my way around, and if you were to point me, to the bus or to whatever, if I have this profile, I can't learn that. I would get lost. And the problem with folks that have these cognitive impairments is, first of all, as a society, we haven't recognized it, as you can see by the lack of studies that have been done. And then, as a clinician, even as the most experienced psychologist, psychiatrist, social worker, you're not really able to determine if someone is cognitively impaired without having some training or using some sophisticated tools. How about if we just venture into all of us being a tiny little bit cognitively impaired for a minute? Okay, would that be all right? And anyone who was at the talk I gave yesterday, no fair. You can't give anyone any hints. But if you have a piece of paper in front of you, please write down what this says. Okay? What does it say? Of course it does. So forget all the research stuff and all that other stuff that we just went over. Just take this piece home with you to whatever work you're doing in whatever setting you're doing. Because this is it. The guy comes in, he talks a really good talk, right? And you're like, wow, he's good to go. I can get him a job at, Goodwill or Salvation Army or whatever. No, you can't. Because we jump to conclusions. Not just the state of Maine. California, you saw all those research studies, right? This is all over. Let's do a little bit of right brain, left brain. I'm going to make it really hard for you to read. Are you okay with that? So just to yourself silently, just read those words. And this part should be pretty easy. Just read the words up there. Okay, we all got that? Now, the next time that I put words up there, instead of saying the word, or instead of reading the word, I want you to read the color. Okay? So on the first one, instead of saying black, you would say green to yourself. And instead of saying white, you'd say blue. I want you to read the color, not the word. See if there's a difference. Go ahead. Did you feel a little like, wait a minute, I'm a good reader. How come this was a little hard? Anybody feel that way?
Much slower.
Much, much slower. And you feel like, I feel a little incapable here, huh? Okay? That's what it feels like to be cognitively impaired. But imagine that that goes on through the whole day. That feeling that you just had, I don't know if it does it on a screen. Does it do it? Yeah, okay, good. And then this one. So cognitive impairment can affect your ability to be able to integrate what you read. And so maybe you're going to look at a word and you don't know what that word is. Or you can't remember the meaning, or you're trying to think of a word and you can't think of that word, or you use a wrong word in place of that word. I remember after my father's stroke, he used the word face for everything. If he wanted a Coke, he'd say, could you go get me a face? Face just replaced everything, and then you'd sort of have to guess and fill in. And what do we do with our guys when they come in and they have a hard time filling out an application? What do we say to them? If this was the application you had to fill out, let's say that said write your name on the paper. What do we do when they don't do what it says? Keep trying. What else do we say to them? Let me help you. Okay, and what else? Come back later when you can do it. Yeah, maybe you didn't get enough sleep. And yesterday, in the meeting we had, someone said, sound it out. I love that one. So if we sat here for the rest of the day, would we have any more information on what that said? And if we looked at it for the rest of the day? But with folks that are cognitively impaired, we somehow expect that if they just look at it longer, somehow the meaning is going to just jump off the page.